If you're a parent, there are some other things that you should know that should send shivers down your spine if you hear these three words: Grand Theft Auto.
You don't become one of the biggest, most profitable media franchises in human history without stepping on a few toes, especially when there's literally a violent felony in your name.
You can pick up guns, knives, you can now choose to stab them, whatever you choose to do, and even confront the police.
Grand Theft Auto was destined to collide with controversy. Lawsuits, international incidents, and full-on moral panics have followed in the wake of the series' unparalleled success. While there's often a kernel of truth to some concerns raised over the violent, over-the-top nature of GTA, advocacy groups and opportunists have spent decades disingenuously trying to take one of gaming's greatest series down before it warps the fragile little minds of our children.
The video games overstimulate that midbrain, the animal part of the brain. You are learning in a virtual reality to be violent, to enjoy being violent, how to kill, so you're given an appetite as well as scenarios in which to be violent.
Anything with as much cultural significance as GTA can have an influence on someone, maybe even a bad one, but study after study after study has failed to find any link between playing violent video games and antisocial behavior in the real world. However, that hasn't stopped opponents from attacking the series pretty much since day one. These are the greatest controversies of Grand Theft Auto. The first flare-up around violent video games is so old it predates Pac-Man. In 1976, Exidy published an extremely simple black-and-white game called Death Race, in which players earn points for running over stick-figure pedestrians. From day one, people were getting big mad about a game where you hit people with cars and get rewarded for it.
Practice, training, learning how to hurt, kill other people. It sets the stage.
Flash forward to 1997, we're just emerging from the first real video game moral panic, the one mostly about Mortal Kombat, where Senator Joe Lieberman is giving speeches and waving around a baby blue Lethal Enforcer's hand cannon. Violence and vulgarity is the cultural vibe, with transgressive content pitched against the moral majority in a war for our attention and our souls. In Scotland, DMA Design, the studio that just made Lemmings, is about to release their next title, a top-down driving game called Grand Theft Auto. The word was already out months before release. This is a game where you do crime. UK tabloids like the Daily Mail ran lurid headlines describing all of the anarchy allowed by the criminal computer game that glorifies hit-and-run thugs, while members of parliament warned that there'd be no way to stop kids from getting their impressionable little hands on it. Is it true, asked Lord Campbell of Croy, that that game includes thefts of cars, joyriding, hit-and-run incidents, and being chased by the police, and that there will be nothing to stop children from buying it? To use current terminology, is that not off-message for young people? The Right Honorable Lord might have been sincere in his convictions, but as it turned out, he was playing right into DMA's hands. Their publisher, multimedia giant BMG, was used to creating buzz for their transgressive music acts like the Sex Pistols, so they were more than happy to lean into the sleazy side of GTA. They hired a dirtbag publicist who leaked details to newspapers and used a whisper network to make sure that certain pearl-clutching politicians were well aware of the upcoming crime simulator. Then, they launched a radio campaign featuring clips from the House of Lords debate that made the game sound completely awesome. Grand Theft Auto was a big success despite its 18+ rating and the fact that it was banned in Brazil entirely. It sold over 3 million copies by 1999, a solid if unremarkable start for a series that would one day rake in billions. Grand Theft Auto's first brush with infamy might have been manufactured, but it taught DMA, and later Rockstar, a valuable lesson. A little controversy can create a lot of cash.
Grand Theft Auto is back.
Grand Theft Auto was a hit, but for a while it was looking like just another flash in the pan, an ultra-violent relic of the late 90s vulgar wave. An expansion pack for the original game and an iterative 2D sequel were met with a resounding meh, but DMA, in its new guise of Rockstar North, was cooking up something truly revolutionary. 2001 was a moment of staggering importance for video games. In a watershed year that saw, among other things, the debut of Halo, Super Smash Bros. Melee, and Metal Gear Solid 2, it's indisputable that Grand Theft Auto 3 had the most impact on the medium. It was that big. The shift in perspective opened our eyes to the opportunities offered by 3D open worlds, but with that freedom came concerns that the game's violent escapist content would be a bad influence for kids.
The technical wizardry has attracted loyal fans, but the graphic violence has attracted angry critics. Denounced by Congress here in the US, the game has been outlawed in Australia, and several other countries are also considering bans.
The game took some valid heat for its portrayal of sex workers, but the larger controversy around it revolved around the violent content. Games were a big target in the wake of the 1999 Columbine High School shooting, as critics pointed their fingers at doom rather than grappling with the real causes. The moral panic was in full swing when Grand Theft Auto 3 hit the scene, and one man pounced on the opportunity to make himself part of its story.
You know, the ancient Greeks identified art as being something that is good, true, or beautiful. And I'd say Grand Theft Auto doesn't meet any of those three requirements. It seems to some to be violence for violence entertainment's sake.
Enter Jack Thompson, a conservative attorney and activist who rose to prominence by attacking radio shock jocks and obscene 2 Live Crew albums. He eventually turned his sights on violent video games and spent over a decade waging an obnoxious war on the industry as a whole.
Ultimately shooting, cutting the heads off of people with machetes of people you don't even know and don't have a motive to be violent against.
He was a constant thorn in the side of early aughts gaming culture. Your favorite webcomics and irate YouTubers definitely took him down a peg or two. It seems cringe in hindsight, but his crusade was no laughing matter. Thompson was a frequent talking head on cable news, constantly blaming violent video games for real-world crimes. He's gone after a lot of different titles over the years, but he's always had a particular axe to grind with Rockstar. Thompson hounded the franchise for years with lawsuits and TV hits accusing GTA of inspiring horrific tragedies. Thompson frequently sued their owner, Take-Two Interactive, as well as retail stores selling GTA and Sony for making the consoles it could be played on. His clients were typically family members of the victims of violent crimes, and he usually demanded outrageous amounts of money.
If you make a product that hurts somebody, if you lie about who you're selling it to, if you ignore the fact that you yourself have literally designed the game to be addictive, and we can get into the proofs of that are out there now, then the only punishment, you can't put these people in jail, so what you do is you take their money. Take-Two has lots of money, and therefore my clients felt, who lost loved ones in part because of these games, they understood that to punish a company that does that, you take their money. So that's simply how it works.
Thompson has done this a lot, far too many times to cover in one piece. His most high-profile case involved Devin Moore, a man in Alabama who was convicted of killing 3 police officers in 2005. Thompson filed a suit alleging it was Moore's obsession with GTA that caused him to snap.
Are you saying that Devin Moore shot 3 people in the head because of a video game?
What we're saying is that Devin Moore was, in effect, trained to do what he did. He was given a murder simulator.
The Moore case gave Thompson a national platform for his one-man vendetta against Rockstar, and cable news was happy to give him a soapbox.
We are suing Take-Two, Sony, Walmart, and GameStop for having trained Devin Moore to kill. He had no history of violence.
It was a big enough deal that BBC even made a movie about it in 2015.
The battle over Grand Theft Auto, the fastest-selling entertainment title in history.
Rockstar called the game changers random made-up bollocks, and IGN's reviewer gave it a 4.5 out of 10. The Devin Moore case was extremely flimsy and quickly dismissed. Thompson wound up in trouble with the Alabama bar as a result of his behavior, something that would become a theme throughout his career.
I am a flawed, fallen creature, but I think I'm involved in something that's righteous.
Thompson was undeterred by his losses, but concerns about GTA's violence were soon drowned out by an even more lurid scandal. GTA is, after all, about America. As a nation, we have an unfortunate tendency to give brutality a pass, but we lose our minds when someone asks his date inside for some hot coffee. Grand Theft Auto 3 was the best-selling game of 2001. It was the second best-selling game of 2002, just behind its sequel, Grand Theft Auto Vice City. It's wild to imagine Rockstar finishing a new Grand Theft Auto game within a year of the last one, but in such a short amount of time they managed to improve on the original in nearly every way. Needless to say, anticipation for a third game in the 3D trilogy was through the roof. At Rockstar, Sam Houser didn't want to disappoint fans who expected the franchise to push even more boundaries. GTA had already sparked a wildfire with its wanton violence, but he had his sights on an even greater taboo: simulated video game sex. We're keen to include new functionality and interaction in line with the vibe of the game, he wrote at the time. To this end, in addition to the violence and bad language, we want to include sexual content, which I understand is questionable to certain people, but pretty natural, more than violence when you think about it. And consider the fact that this game is intended for adults. Houser was determined to include sex in San Andreas. During development, Rockstar worked on a full-fledged minigame to serve as the final stage of the game's dating activity, in which the player controls main character CJ in flagrante delicto. That means doing the nasty. Unfortunately for Hauser, sex would tip the rating scale and result in San Andreas being slapped with an adults only, or AO, as opposed to the more acceptable M for mature. M-rated games had restrictions on who could buy them, but up to 80% of US retailers at the time flat out refused to stock anything rated AO. If Rockstar wanted San Andreas to sell, CJ would have to keep it in his pants. Hauser was not happy. Not only is it insane to edit comedy like this, he wrote in a particularly salty email, to do so is going to be a lot of work and will screw with things. Is this really as far as we can push it? I just cannot believe that. Changing this stuff will absolutely have a time impact. It was allegedly too late to fully remove the sexual content for the game since it was already deeply intertwined with the code. Besides, Hauser was planning to patch it back in later when the PC version dropped. Instead, the minigame was merely disabled, and as one Dutch modder soon discovered, it would be a simple matter to switch it back on. Patrick Wildenborg and his modding buddies started digging into San Andreas as soon as the game came out in October of 2004, cracking open the codebase and discovering strangely named files like kissing and S&M. They realized these were animations of explicit, albeit fully clothed sex acts from a dummied-out dating minigame, but Wildenborg decided to sit on the discovery until the PC version released the following summer. With one simple change in a hex editor, the forbidden content was restored. Wildenborg published his discovery on June 7, 2005, naming the mod Hot Coffee. As Hot Coffee filtered through the series' online fandom, it didn't take long for Rockstar to become aware. Sam Hauser wasn't worried at first. In an email to San Andreas producer Leslie Benzies, he said, "They found it. This cause any problems? Hope not, as it's pretty cool." The ESRB didn't think it was that cool. They announced an investigation into the game's rating process, prompting the mainstream media to start paying attention. Even though the content was only accessible through modding on PC and essentially unavailable on the console versions entirely, opponents argued that the mere presence of the code on the disc was enough to warrant the dreaded AO rating. Major retailers like Walmart, Target, and Best Buy immediately stopped selling San Andreas, and Rockstar issued a recall and replaced the tainted copies with a patched version that didn't have the offending code. In the 2000s, a controversy involving modding and cut content was pretty novel. Non-video game people had a hard time wrapping their heads around the concept that bad stuff was completely inaccessible to the layperson, and both sides took advantage. Rockstar slyly insinuated that the modders were the ones who had created Hot Coffee, even though Wildenborg had their back and took down the files in solidarity. Meanwhile, the media and politicians acted like sex was a major selling point for the game.
And what makes the sale of this game, Glenn, a criminal act, which Take-Two knows is a criminal act, is the incredible levels of simulated sex in the game. You can go into an adult strip club.
Jack Thompson seized the opportunity and reached across the aisle to find an unlikely ally in his quest to annoy gaming out of existence.
So I worked as a lifelong Republican with Hillary Clinton on the Grand Theft Auto San Andreas Hot Coffee issue.
It's almost routine in popular games for players to spray other people with Uzis, to drive over pedestrians, to kill police officers, to attack women, and in some cases, even to engage in cannibalism. Now, it is up to adults whether they wish to expose themselves to this type of violence and pornography.
Thompson prepped Clinton for the press conference, which resulted in a resolution from Congress calling for an FTC investigation into Hot Coffee.
This final bit of legislation is dealing with a resolution that urges the Federal Trade Commission to investigate the video game Grand Theft Auto San Andreas.
The FTC said that Take-Two was deceptive in marketing San Andreas, but let them off with a warning. They were less lucky with a class action lawsuit that eventually settled for $20 million, but the furor quickly faded. Rockstar had pulled away from the pay and spray of public opinion, ready to enter the HD era with their wanted level erased.
Grand Theft Auto 4 goes on sale at midnight and fans are revved up and ready to buy.
Grand Theft Auto 4 was a big change of pace from the prior 3D Universe trilogy. Instead of leaning into the madcap freedom of San Andreas, Rockstar slowed things down and smashed that verisimilitude button.
Grand Theft Auto 4 is expected to sell nearly 9 million copies.
There's a deliberate weightiness to the world of GTA 4, a contrast struggle under the weight of social expectations, and a slightly overtuned physics engine. GTA 4 is a more subdued rampage simulator, notably less violent than its predecessors. Gone are the dismemberments and arcadey gore of the 3D trilogy, replaced with Euphoria crumple physics, arguably just as unsettling as Tommy Vercetti slicing off heads with a katana, but definitely not as splashy. Despite kind of getting what they wanted, critics refused to let up.
Parents, listen up. In Grand Theft Auto, your son or your husband or your boyfriend or whoever can hire a prostitute, have sex with her, and then beat her to death with a baseball bat. When a police officer comes after him, he can either light that police officer on fire or cut him in half with a chainsaw. This is entertainment?
When you put it like that, it sounds bad, but the fact is that GTA's violence has been trending downward as the games grow more complex and lifelike. Maybe that makes it more insidious, but by this point, there was barely even a commotion anymore. Even the angry cable news guys knew they were beating a dead horse.
I know that when I say this, about 80% of the people in America that hear me go, oh, geez, here's a crazy conservative on TV screaming about the dangers of video games.
While the violence angle was looking a little dusty, folks found plenty of other reasons to get big mad about GTA 4. The organization Mothers Against Drunk Driving was upset that the game allowed Nico to get behind the wheel after broing out with Packy or Little Jacob, and petitioned the ESRB to slap the game with an AO rating. Rockstar stuck to their guns, insisting that their audience is more than sophisticated enough to understand the game's content. They were also sophisticated enough to appreciate the franchise debut of full frontal male nudity in the Lost and the Damned expansion pack. Parents groups sounded the alarm in response, warning that the game should be kept away, far away from children. No one, least of all Rockstar, would disagree with that statement. Most of these controversies wouldn't even exist if everyone would just acknowledge that GTA is not a game for kids, even if a ton of kids play it. Every lawsuit, every federal investigation, every little uproar has ended up in the same place. The onus is on concerned guardians and retailers to keep these M-rated titles out of kids' hands, and Rockstar is free to make the games they want to make, no matter how hard people like Jack Thompson try to shut them down. Thompson was at the height of his relevance in the run-up to GTA 4, picking fights with Penny Arcade and scrapping with Adam Sessler on G4.
Show me the game. Give me the game and I'll play it, and I'll let them know whether or not I or anybody else has a problem with it. But what they want to do is keep it.
Why don't we just hold on until the game comes out?
All of those media hits were starting to go to Thompson's head.
I was on the Today Show 8 times about this issue, 60 Minutes twice, 5 years apart. And I had become addicted a substantial degree to the rush of being on important networks. You get a sense of self-importance. Maybe you're more important than you are.
Thompson had become such a pain in the ass to Rockstar by this point that Take-Two preemptively sued him in order to cut off any frivolous lawsuits about GTA 4. The parties settled, with Thompson agreeing not to sue or block the sale or distribution of any of Take-Two's future games. In exchange, Rockstar dropped the contempt of court charges stemming from Thompson's improper conduct during his bully campaign against Bully. The war, at long last, was over. Well, for 5 months. Then Thompson accused Take-Two of stealing his likeness and trying to get the game banned. It didn't work, obviously. GTA was a smash hit, and its successor was about to become the biggest thing ever, except when it came to controversy.
How big of a deal is Grand Theft Auto? Opening day sales for the 5th installment of the video game surpassed $800 million. That's more than the top 4 biggest box office opening weekends of all time combined.
Grand Theft Auto 5 was an extremely impressive package when it released in 2013, smoothing out the rough edges of 4 with a unique 3-protagonist setup and a live service multiplayer mode that upended the entire industry. The only thing underwhelming about GTA 5 is the outcry that surrounded it. There really wasn't one. In Australia, a country where every GTA game since 3 has either been banned or censored, GTA 5 was rated R18+, a new category equivalent to AO that was created just prior to the game's release in 2013. Despite the strict rating, Aussie fans cheered that the game would be available in unaltered form, though their celebrations were cut short a bit after a petition resulted in GTA 5 being pulled from retailers like Target and Kmart. While the land down under has had an unusually antagonistic relationship with the franchise, the rest of the world was largely willing to let it slide. GTA 5's most notable creation is Trevor Phillips, a raving psychopath who canonizes the chaos and carnage that players experienced in older titles. For once, an in-game character represented the emergent freedom enjoyed by gamers embarking on unscripted rampages between missions, a balding, tattooed embodiment of Jack Thompson and Hillary Clinton's darkest fears. In a way, Trevor's presence almost diffused larger concerns about violence, at least in the think of the children sense. He was clearly a cartoon character, a straw man who couldn't survive very long in the real world. If there were really a bunch of Trevors out there copying GTA, we would probably notice. Instead, it was one very specific scene that threw GTA 5 in hot water. During the mission, by the book, the player controls Trevor as he interrogates an innocent man on behalf of the federal government using a wrench, a car battery, and pliers to torture information out of him. Obviously a satire of the US military's enhanced interrogation techniques during the War on Terror, turning torture into a QuickTime event was a bridge too far for many in the media. The mission was widely criticized by the press and condemned by politicians, teachers' unions, and even Amnesty International, despite the litany of violent crimes against humanity that GTA 5 allows people to commit every minute. We talked a lot about when Grand Theft Auto offends the religious right, TV pundits, entire countries, and the ambitions of activists and politicians. But what about when the series gets under the skin of a celebrity? In 2014, actor Lindsay Lohan brought a lawsuit against Take-Two, alleging they had stolen her likeness for GTA 5. The whopping 67-page complaint was really based on two allegations. First, that the blonde, bikini-clad woman who featured heavily on the marketing was based on a picture of Lindsay Lohan throwing up her, quote, signature peace sign. This claim kind of falls through when one realizes that the woman in the picture looks absolutely nothing like Lindsay Lohan. If anything, she looks kind of like 2010's It girl Kate Upton, though it turns out that the actual model for the image was a woman named Shelby Wellender, who literally produced receipts by posting her invoice from Rockstar on Instagram. The second claim of Lohan's suit involved a character named Lacey Jonas, a rather broad parody of Hollywood divas, and well, you don't have to squint too hard to see that Lohan was probably an influence. Fortunately, art is allowed to poke fun at celebrities, whether they like it or not. Rockstar fired back, arguing that the lawsuit was frivolous, Lohan was simply filing it for publicity purposes, and that parody and satire of public figures is protected by the First Amendment. At least on that last part, the court agreed. According to the decision, this video game's unique story, characters, dialogue, and environment, combined with the player's ability to choose how to proceed in the game, render it a work of fiction and satire. Lohan was out of luck. For GTA 5, the controversy came and went with a whimper. By this point, violence was part of the fabric of gaming, to the point where gun-shooting games are openly marketed to children, and Mortal Kombat fatalities are almost considered quaint. The gnarly, hyper-realistic gore in The Last of Us Part 2 makes GTA look like imagined party babies by comparison, but that barely made a ripple in the discourse tsunami that followed Naughty Dog's polarizing sequel. As for GTA 5, the game took far more heat for selling shark cards, the in-game currency for its ever-popular online mode, than for any of the mature content it contains. No one really cares about violent video games anymore. That battle is over and people like Jack Thompson lost. What's a man like Thompson to do in a brave new world that utterly rejected the argument he spent his entire life making? Well, not practice law for one, because the attorney was disbarred by the Florida Supreme Court in 2008. Citing a 169-page report detailing the extensive misconduct of respondent and his complete lack of remorse, Thompson was stripped of his law license for his long history of inappropriate behavior, frivolous lawsuits, false statements, relentless harassment, and flagrant disregard for the rules. His legal career, his fight against Rockstar, and his entire life's work all ended in complete failure. Looking back, Jack Thompson still refuses to see it that way.
And so it was a multi-pronged effort. The federal government got involved. 2 presidents have gotten involved. I got involved on the litigation side of things and in the public relations side of things and doing these shows. And I think, frankly, I moved the ball a bit to the point where the industry became more responsible than they maybe otherwise would have.
Responsible is not a word generally associated with the gaming industry, least of all Grand Theft Auto. It rose to dominance by pushing boundaries, breaking taboos, and playing with fire, but rarely getting burned. If anything, the history of outrage surrounding GTA only added to its irresistible mystique, solidifying its stature as a cannot-miss cultural event. There's little doubt that Grand Theft Auto 6 and beyond will continue to court controversy while raking in billions and reshaping the entire medium of video games to their image. While most of our excitement for the sequel is over the prospect of actually finally getting to play it, we're also just dying to find out what Rockstar has tucked away in this next installment that causes the next big outrage. But how weird will it be if the most controversial thing about GTA 6 is just how long we had to wait for it? For more on Grand Theft Auto, check out our ranking of every game in the series so far, as well as the complete GTA timeline explained. And for all things gaming, even when it's not controversial, keep it right here on IGN.